From Wall Street to Main Street, this is LALATE.
It's a big evening of evenings LA with incredible great news about your fourth stimulus check update of 2022. Live and direct from the shores of Santa Monica, California. It's a big night across the board as major developing details unfolding about this U.S. economy. Tonight, we learned that the U.S. economy did not grow in the first quarter of this year as initially anticipated. And tonight, shares of major U.S. stocks are down dramatically because their growth projections are not as good. Amazon, Robinhood, Intel, Western Digital all taking a major hit tonight in overnight trading. But the great news is that Build Back Better Act may have another push. What's going on tonight? I have the latest breaking news. It's huge, with Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin taking contradictory positions. Oh boy, this is interesting. Now, 4 stimulus checks have landed by direct deposit from Joe Biden. The president has sent out 4 stimulus checks by executive order. I'll show you how to get them in this recording tonight. States now stepping up as well. Their state legislators and their state representatives up for re-election in just a few weeks. They're trying to get those state stimulus checks out to you. This is as viewed as the GDP in the U.S. economy continues to shrink, and millions of Americans are wondering if we're in a recession or heading into one. I'm going to show you over tonight's recording why we are heading into recession and why we're not going to slow down. The GDP shrunk the first part of this year, but what else did we learn today? We also learned that the growth projections for this economy is not particularly good. Dow is actually up tonight overall, 600 points, after big concerns that we're in a bear market. But what do you need to know about that SS300? I'll have the latest details on that. What do you need to know about that 6 stimulus? I have the latest details on that. Plus, major developing details tonight about student loan debt forgiveness. Brand new details tonight as well. Over this 1-hour broadcast, we're going to go over a lot of money, a lot of breaking news you want to get the money for. We're here to learn and we're here to earn, not to get burned. And over this 1-hour broadcast, you're going to see how there's so much money to be gotten. You want to become a member right tonight and become ready to bounce to get these big checks. From the shores of Santa Monica, California to the shores of the Black Sea, we'll have everything you need to know to get that big money and to get that big learning curve going. It's Evenings LALATE, and it starts right now. Good evening, everybody. It's a big night across the board with big money and big developing details. Breaking news. Over this 1-hour broadcast, we're going to learn how to earn because there's a lot of money landed, and that big money is yours to be gotten. It's 4 stimulus checks, a lot of them. Coming from both the Congress? No, not today, but yes, from the President of the United States and the states. We'll have the latest details on that front in just a second. But as we start tonight's breaking news report, we got to know that the U.S. economy is stalling. It's stalling more than it was on last night's Evenings LALATE. And this came as the day started with bad GDP numbers and ended with even worse. The gross national product is a number used to gauge how big the U.S. economy is. A positive number means the economy is growing. A negative number means the economy is shrinking. We started today, April 28th, with a brand new number released. And it showed that while Wall Street anticipated in the first quarter of this year a 1% growth of the U.S. economy, what happened? We went down 1.5%. The U.S. economy's GDP shrunk 1.4% the first quarter of this year when Wall Street expected it to grow 1%. This is after a series of bad data for GDP over the last 7 days. 7 days ago, we were learning that we thought that the GDP right now in the United States was 7.1% growth. It wasn't at 6.9%. Then, 2 days ago, we heard from the White House insider who said that by the end of the year, Wall Street is overvalued where GDP growth would be. Not 4%. The White House insider said 3.7%. Tonight, the data shows that consumer spending rose. Yes, more people spent money this first quarter of this year, up 2.7%. That's as prices continue to surge 7.8%. Is this noise? It is, but not a signal, says Ian Shepperson today, head of economics at Pantheon's Macroeconomics. But other people like Simone Machuda, chief economist at State Street, said in retrospect, this could be a pivotal moment. Does this number mean that we're in a recession? No. Remember, recession is a negative number, but that's where I say we're going. I believe by the end of this year, the U.S. economy will be at a 0 GDP number, because next year and the year after that, I'm projecting a negative number. And I'm not alone. Tonight, Deutsche Bank also is projecting 2 years of recession starting in 2023. And there's a 35% chance of recession, says the brokerage firm of JP of Bear Stearns. So what's important to know is that the situation continues to struggle across the board. Goldman Sachs continues to struggle across the board, and the numbers continue to get worse. But as that GDP number started the day, where do we end the day? Another GDP growth number. The latest details came in minutes ago from Amazon. You know, the big shipper across the country. You buy those products during the pandemic. You would think they're doing really well. They're not. Shares of Amazon tonight are tumbling down 10%. Why? Because of Vladimir Putin. Yes, they reported their first quarter results tonight, and they issued weaker than expected guidance for the second quarter this year. Amazon shares dropped initially 9%, then 10% overnight, as they now signal that the impact on the invasion of Ukraine has been negatively impacting their business. This is what we talk about on the channel, folks. GDP, negative growth. And they're now projecting a weaker forecast and the slowest growth since the dot-com bubble burst of many decades ago. Earnings were a miss by Amazon, reporting $7 a share, $7.30 a share versus $8.36 expected, and their revenues were barely at issue. Advertising was dramatically down. But this is what Amazon said about the economy tonight. Amazon CEO Andy Jassy, just minutes ago, said that the pandemic and subsequent war in Ukraine has brought unusual growth and challenges. However, it's also caused unusual costs, and the fulfillment network is struggling. This may take some time, particularly as we work through the ongoing inflationary and supply chain pressure. But we see encouraging progress. Translation, problems aboard. And it's not alone. As I told you in the opening remarks, Intel's down tonight, 4%. Robinhood down 8% tonight. Western Digital down 2% tonight. Apple up slightly, 2%. And Roku up slightly. Why? The economy is shrinking. The White House insider says the U.S. economy will shrink to 3.7% by the end of the year. This is good news for Build Back Better Act, because if the economy is shrinking from 6.9% growth right now to 3.7%, then you need that relief. The president's staff has said in recent days the president's refocusing back on the U.S. economy as part of his domestic agenda to win the midterm elections. Or is he? Since that first announcement came from that off-the-record insider no less than 5 days ago, the White House, which had said it was going to pivot off of focusing on Ukraine, which is not winning well among the American people in recent polls, has not issued one, not two, but now 3 releases of additional funds to Ukraine, another one today. The situation is unfolding as rising inflation continues to kick in across the board. What you need to know is that the sustainable growth, because Ukraine is a big question mark tonight. And the question mark also got this. When the President of the United States was having a press conference to announce the additional funds to Ukraine, one reporter did exactly what you would do as well. When are you going to forgive that student loan debt, Joe? That was the question. When are you going to forgive that student loan debt? And let's understand why that question was asked. Because the question was asked last week. In fact, the question has been asked for over a year. This is 7 stimulus, and tonight we have breaking new details on this tonight. 7 stimulus was a Joe Biden campaign promise to forgive student loan debt forgiveness. Now, when he came into office, he was asked to do $50,000 by Elizabeth Warren and Chuck Schumer. So he said no, but he didn't say why. Then he said he was going to dispatch Miguel Cardona, his head of education, to analyze the situation and get back to him. He never got back to anyone. Then the president forgave student loan debts for individuals who went into the nonprofit sector. Public sector became disabled after graduation. Good. It got really good in the last 6 days, folks. You know how good it got. The president first took student loan debts who were in default, put them in good standing. Wow, that's great. Then the president said, if you have to repay debts by May, I'm going to roll it over to September. Even better. Then the president said the best part of the statements, executive orders. This one was, if your debt was procured by fraud by the university against you, he's forgiving it completely. Whoa, that is a big one, because that was Elizabeth Warren's campaign push to get this finished across the finish line. Then, the biggest of the best was last week. The press secretary, Joe Biden, said the president has complete student loan debt forgiveness on the table. So, in announcing more money for Ukraine, what did the reporter say today? Not a question about Ukraine. What about that student loan debt forgiveness, Joe? He snapped back and said, I'm not considering $50,000 in debt forgiveness. Ouch. Did someone not give him a Snickers bar? He really snapped and says, I'm not considering $50,000 of student loan debt. That seemed to come out of nowhere because that wasn't really the question. The question was, what are you doing about student loan debt? And he jabbed and said, I'm not doing $50,000. So what number are you doing? And where are we? Remember, last Friday, the press secretary said it's still on the table and we're going to have a decision within just a few days. In fact, right before that, his chief of staff, Ron Klain, said the president was going to make a determination about student loan debt by May. What did Joe Biden say today? But I'm in the process of taking a harder look at this and decide whether to do something or not. Excuse me? You've been taking a long look at this for a very long time, Joe. Should I replay the footage? This is like, excuse me? Excuse me? Yeah, you've been looking at this for a little bit of a long time to make up your mind already. So there we are. Biden would not say what's the magic number, but let me understand to you what's at issue. If he forgave $10,000 an individual per borrower, per current student or former student, $10,000 per borrower, that would wipe out $321 billion of student loan debts and eliminate the complete debt for at least 12 million U.S. Americans. It's great. And I'll have more about that commentary later in this video. But the good news is that while the press is on subject for that matter, the press is back on subject for something else. Build Back Better and the Joe Manchin Kyrsten Sinema saga. Yes, tonight we're going to learn a little bit more about Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, or are we getting a fake narrative? A new report out today says the Build Back Better Act, which I already told you in this recording, is back on front and center for the midterm elections for Joe Biden to get it done. Has a new date. Ooh, a new date. And also has a new twist. Let's go over that twist. First, the new twist tonight says, I'm not saying it's the actual truth, I'm just saying it says, that Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema have opposite opinions about the Build Back Better Act. Excuse me? I thought it was just all of us, the whole world against them. Last time I checked, it was just, Hall of Western Civilization versus Joe and Kyrsten. And tonight it's they're against each other. Is this like, a new Real Housewives season when they have different alliances? I just don't understand what's going on here, folks. Let's go over the details. The report, which is published in a conservative publication and is about why Joe Biden's having problems with this. It's the same, the story basically says that Kyrsten Sinema doesn't like what Joe Manchin is doing with Build Back Better Act. Joe Manchin, we know for over a year, has said, I want Build Back Better Act to be done because I want to increase student loan, I want to increase corporate taxes, and I want to increase national debt. I mean, both of them are good. That's what he's always said. So there's no pivoting there. That's the same news from last year. But tonight we have a strange twist. In a new report, which is not confirmed anywhere else, so I'm not going to take it to the bank or anything else Joe Manchin says. I'm not going to take it to the bank. It claims that Kyrsten Sinema is exactly opposed to exactly what Joe Manchin wants. What? That Kyrsten Sinema will vote against the Build Back Better Act if Joe Manchin gets those provisions in there. Whoa. So this is getting a little complicated. So do I co-sign this? Do I believe it's accurate reporting? I do not think it's accurate reporting. I think it's really just sort of salaciousness. Andrew Bates, who's the president's chief White House spokesperson, says anyone expressing those sentiments is not speaking to the White House. And the negotiations have been good faith. Now, we do have a new date. We do have a new date. By July. Wait a second, that was the date last year. Well, the new date is not by July 2021, which will certainly pass. The new date is by July 2022. Yeah, there we go. The new report says that the White House wants to get this done before Memorial Day weekend, and certainly by July. Now, the revenue stuff is definitely not settled, says one insider. That's how to pay for Build Back Better Act. Ultimately, the concept of getting this all done before the Memorial Day weekend sounds familiar. How familiar is it? I think we've done this 3 times in 3 years. We did this for second stimulus before Memorial Day weekend. They didn't get anything done for second stimulus before Memorial weekend. We had this for third stimulus before Memorial Day. We had this for fourth stimulus before Memorial Day weekend in 2021. And now we're doing it again for fourth stimulus before Memorial Day weekend. How about we just do it before Monday? Wouldn't that just make it so much easier? The interesting news is that Joe Manchin, of course, introduced that piece of legislation with Lisa Murkowski earlier this week. She's a Republican, and he's at least a Democrat on the front door. What did they do? They introduced a piece of legislation that is proposed to solve energy issues. I love it. Why? Because this is the part of the Build Back Better Act that Joe Manchin has an issue about. If he gets people talking, then people start walking. And I like it. Ultimately, I understand that Joe Manchin and Lisa Murkowski's legislation is not going to get passed. It's only 2 people. But I like the concept. Now, the other report out tonight is that no one has any idea what this Build Back Better Act may look like through the next few days. Why? Because there's some indications that a lot of stuff will stay in there, more stuff will be added in there, but we don't know about the energy, and we don't know about the children. There's a series of indications that the children's elements may come out, like the CTC, and maybe the money to help the elderly. Folks feel just burnt by Joe Manchin, says a top Democratic operative tonight. What I want you to take away from is the following. I believe that Build Back Better Act is going to get done. It may be a very different Build Back Better Act. And I think it's going to get done very quickly. Why? Because if Joe Biden has any sense, and if anyone in Joe Biden's team saw what happened a year ago, they're not going to repeat what Donald Trump did. What Donald Trump did was wait too long to do relief, and then by that time that the relief landed, you had already voted in the election. He's not going to do that, Joe Biden, if he has an awareness of history. It was last year when Donald Trump was coming out of his recovery from COVID, and he turned to Mark Meadows and said, what's going on with that stimulus package? Get it done. It was potentially at that point that he had an awakening that he needed to do it very quickly because the election was right around the corner. He did get second stimulus, or the Democrats and Republicans got second stimulus done, but by that point, the election was far from over. So Joe Biden needs to get it done now. Why? Because the midterm elections are not November. You vote by mail, generally, and that is 2 months ahead of time, which means that you want those checks before that. It means you want the checks by August. If you want the checks by August, then they got to get the vote and the signature by Joe Biden on the paper by July. If they do that vote by July, they have to solidify their negotiations by May. That's why I do believe this deadline is happening. Really interesting across the board. Now, here is what you also need to know, is that the U.S. economy is stalling up. Major data across the board, day in, day out, shows that the U.S. economy is stalling up. And as the U.S. economy stalls up, guess what's happening? Different than 2020. In 2020, we had Mitch McConnell and the Republicans versus the Democrats saying economy's good, economy's bad, a differing opinion based upon which political party you are. Tonight, that's not the situation. Both political parties saying the U.S. economy is stalling up. No one in their right mind particularly says this economy is doing perfectly across the board. And that is why both parties need to get stimulus done. Tonight, you're going to see a new narrative from me, which is this. I don't think that the Republicans can't do anything with Build Back Better Act. I think the Republicans understand they have to do something with Build Back Better Act. And if they don't, they're going to lose. If the Democrats do too much with Build Back Better Act, they're going to lose. Let me give you the analysis. What's going on is that Americans are struggling economically because the economy is starting to falter, and we're going to recession. We'll be close to recession by the time you vote later this year. We all understand that, folks. Now, as you go to vote, you're going to see what the political parties are doing for you, not what they're proposing to do for you. And what happens is you're going to look and see what they're doing at that time. Democrats will have Build Back Better Act. Republicans will have a reaction to Build Back Better Act. The Republicans can't simply say no because that will give the Democrats the election. And the Democrats can't do too much because they may not get too much passed. So the takeaway is I think there's a higher likelihood of bipartisan passage of Build Back Better, because it looks like both parties helping you. Both parties want to look like they're helping you, and that's not alone. The situation is getting worse by the day. Let's look at the economic data. The number of non-farm payroll jobs was a miss just days ago, 60,000 down. Then we already went over the GDP number. We also have the consumer price index number showing that inflation is getting worse by the day. And that inflation is going higher. Jay Powell, in just a few days from now, will have that first FOMC meeting to raise interest rates to get that inflation down. And guess what? If my opinion of what Jay Powell is going to do and what's going to happen is correct, it's going to be worse for both political parties. Why? Jay Powell, in my opinion, will do a half basis point in May, as he said, and then we'll do a half basis point at the next FOMC meeting thereafter. And my opinion is that that will not work. I do not believe that Federal Reserve has the tools to get down inflation because it's caused by supply chain disruption. You saw the comments from Amazon reporting minutes ago. It's not alone. That supply chain disruption cannot be solved by anything at the Federal Reserve. And tonight, the supply chain disruption is hurting the U.S. economies, its GDP, and also other countries' GDP. As those economies continue to shrink and we try to battle inflation, what are we doing? We're raising interest rates. But I believe that potentially what Jay Powell will leave you with is higher interest rates and still inflation. If you go into the next 60 days and you have higher interest rates, but the same inflation, it's not going to look good. And what do we know tonight? That's what I was reporting 2 months ago. And tonight, that's what's really about to happen. Let me go over the data. The bond traders continue to trade up the 10-year Treasury note, and the mortgage rates continue to surge. 3% for that mortgage rate in February. Tonight, 5%. Why? Because Jay Powell's doings. What's happened to the inflation in that time? The inflation that time has gone up. So we thought we were going to raise those interest rates and get inflation down. No. What you got was higher rates, which means more money for car loans, more money for flexible mortgage rates, and that also means more money for credit card debt. What in turn did you get for that? Not much of anything, because guess what? What you got on the inflationary front is worse news. The data from the month of February to March shows that the U.S. economy surged in inflation even as Jay Powell was raising interest rates. What happened? From February to March, the price of energy surged 11% in 1 month. You know why, Vladimir Putin. Then the price of fresh fruits and vegetables raised dramatically 3%, and other foods went up 1%. Well, you just saw the report that I had tonight. That report tonight shows that consumer spending still went up. That's good. It shows that people still want to spend, but they continue to spend more as the price of goods went up dramatically in the last 30 days. The data can't continue that way, and that is why companies are now starting to report missing corporate earnings or lower earnings forecasts. They believe that consumer demand will drop, and that is all good for Build Back Better Act. Now let's go to the pairing up of Build Back Better Act and SS 300. SS 300 was a campaign promise by Joe Biden and then a presidential platform of Joe Biden to raise your benefits up if you're on SSI, SSDI, Social Security Railroad benefits. How does he do it? It's one of many things at issue. Stay at the very end of this video because there's a lot of checks coming up in this video. 4 stimulus checks from your state, 4 stimulus checks from the federal government. But right now we're going to go over the potential first check, which would be if Joe Biden makes that phone call. Joe Biden needs to make the phone call to the Social Security Administrator head. Swap COLA for inflation. That would be $200 more in your bucket book, in your wallet, 30 days out from the time at which he makes the phone call. Let's go over the equation tonight. Joe Biden has done this twice before. First, he called up the Department of Agriculture in October last year, saying you're not paying enough money for SNAP, pay them more money. And that became the reality. It happened. Then he picked up the phone and called Miguel Cardona, head of education, saying forgive some student loan debts. And that happened. That's what we went over just a second ago. What's happening with this front? All he has to do is pick up the phone and call the head of Social Security Administration and say, swap COLA for inflation. And guess what happens? You get $200 more per month, about 30 days out from here. Not just half month, not just this year, but a lifetime. Because once your benefits go up, they never go down. The inflation rate tonight is likely higher than 8%. This is going into that May FOMC meeting. Last year, I got the numbers very right. No one else had them correct. I projected 8% inflation in December 2021 and not temporary. No one else had the number. I did. And I was right. It was 8% inflation in December, 8% in January. I continued to project that inflation was going to go higher. I knew it because you knew it. I said, do this. Go into the supermarket, see if the price of eggs went up 10 cents or 20 cents or anything in the last 30 days. If you're in the live chat right now, write if you see eggs going up this month and how much, 10 cents, 20 cents, the same brand, the same market. If you do, you see inflation. And state which state you are in, because that is price inflation. And if you see price inflation before me, that is what's going to happen when it's reported. We're currently in April, but we wouldn't see the data till May. Now, the inflation number from February to March and from March to April showed we went higher. We went up about a third of a percentage point. We could still go even higher in the month of April. And that is as these corporate earnings came in minutes ago. And they're saying the costs are hurting them, whether it's Amazon, Robinhood, Intel, Western Digital. Apple is up 2% overnight, and that is as it's dealing with higher costs. And of course, Roku is doing quite well. But when you look at Amazon, what it said tonight is that these costs are really hurting them. This is why the revenues were coming in right on mark at $116 billion versus $116 billion expected. But their earnings were a major miss, $7.38 a share versus $8.36 a share. And then now focusing the slowest growth since the dot-com bubble. This is not good. And then projecting that growth could dip below 3 to 7% for the year before. Ouch. I mean, when we talk about growth, usually with tech stocks, we're talking about a larger, much more growth. This is very, very troubling. But also good news for Build Back Better. Build Back Better signals that we need to do better, faster, before things get worse. Number one, the U.S. economy is stalling up. We need that relief. Number two, the U.S. economy is potentially going into recession in 2 years. Number three, the U.S. economy is battling inflation, battling supply chain disruption, battling out-of-control items. And that is why that relief needs to be done. Now, if Joe Biden makes that phone call to Social Security Administration to make that swap from COLA to inflation today, your benefits will go up $200 more per month. What about the end of the year? If we look at the end of the year, I'm projecting 4% GDP by the end of the 4% inflation by the end of the year. That would be another $100 a month. That would be SS 300. But Joe Biden needs to do that simple phone call. Needless to say, I got to tell you, he was not happy. The President of the United States was not happy when having a press conference about Ukraine. Someone asked him about student loan debt forgiveness. It's like I want to sit there and say, can I ask you about why you haven't called the Social Security Administrator head? You called Zelensky 7,000 times. Why can't you call the Social Security Administrator head? You even wrote that you were going to do it. Of course, when President Zelensky welcomed Anthony Blinken in Ukraine just days ago, said, I hope you haven't come with just a cake. Hope you came with more than a cake. Well, if Joe Biden came to California, I would say, I hope you came with your cell phone, because I hope you call Social Security Administrator head and swap that COLA for inflation. This is so simple. This is easier than student loan debt forgiveness. This is a simple phone call and can be done across the board. Now, amidst all that confusion of Build Back Better Act, SS 300, inflation, and interest rates is a sea of great news. It's a sea and a lake and a beautiful dock with a boat that has bacon on it of great news. And the great news is 4 stimulus checks. 4 stimulus checks have landed by direct deposit from different sources, and more are coming. More are coming by the day, by the hour. And I don't mean months from now, I mean right now. Not 5 weeks from now, not 5 months from now. What are they? They are, first, your state 4 stimulus checks, and then the presidential 4 stimulus checks. If you don't know how money can get to you from the government, let me show you how. It can come from your county, your city, your state, or the federal government, which can be either an agency, Congress, or the President of the United States. Tonight, money is coming to you from your city, your county, your state, another part of the state, and also from the President of the United States. The only one not sending you the money yet is Congress. That would be Build Back Better Act. So how do you get these incredible checks? And let's go over the excitement tonight. The excitement tonight is that every time we had talked about a first, a second, or a third stimulus check, we talked about amounts of $600 or $1,200 or or $800. Tonight, the big news is that the fourth stimulus checks that are landing by direct deposit have an extra zero at the end, or an extra two more zeros. They sure ain't $600 stimulus checks. And the details tonight is that more states are doing Check D. That is the latest of many stimulus checks across the board. Let me go over the details tonight on what you need to know. First, let's start with those states. The states operate much like the federal government. They understand what's going on with Vladimir Putin. They understand what's going on with their electorate. They understand they're up for re-election in the fall. Election day in November is also election day for state electorates like governors and state elections, state senators and state representatives. What they want to do is the same as Congress wants to do. They want to get your vote. And to get your vote, they want to get your money. The interesting dynamic of it is they have to. Why do they have to get your money? Because a provision called use or lose. The provision is in the third stimulus, and that's where the money is heating up. That is why four stimulus checks have now gone out by direct deposit, and viewers are getting them. Where are they coming from? They're coming from two sources. First, they're coming from the federal government, and then they're coming from the states. How do you get these checks by direct deposit? They're coming up in the second half of this video. But first, become a member during the commercial break. I don't want you to miss any of these checks. Go to the top of the chat, go to the pinned comment, become a Purple Hawk, Purple Power, or Calcino VIP. Then, get that incredible newsletter Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time via the YouTube alert system. I'll be looking back to six stimulus because we have a new changing developing detail about Germany tonight. And that's huge news because six stimulus would be a huge stimulus package. Then we'll be looking over to what would happen next with Build Back Better Act, what will happen next between now and May and late May. A lot of moving parts. And are we in a bear market? And what's happening in the U.S. economy? Are we heading in recession? Are we definitely in recession now? What do you need to know? And why is learning earning on this channel? I'll go over the importance of learning, and while learning is earning, and if you don't learn, you can get burned. And why people may also get burned if they aren't getting these big checks that are available tonight. I'm going to go over each of these incredible checks that you deserve and should get right across the board. They're big sums of money, and we aren't talking about a few dollars in the bank. It's all come up in the second half of this video. Plus, we'll be looking at what will happen by the middle of this week and why the president was so upset about that question about student loan debt forgiveness. Those details and more as we go into the big second half. But first, here's a little bit about the members community page. Don't forget to become a member during the commercial break, and I'll see you back in 60 seconds. As America's most watched show for financial news in prime time, Evenings LALATE continues. If you want money right now, not 5 days from now, and not 5 weeks from now, then reach out to the community page. The volunteers can help you find that money for rent and utilities. That's at news.la.com/community. The community page features a series of volunteers who are viewers like you. They can help you find rent, utilities, SNAP, food benefits, mortgage assistance, and help you with eviction moratorium questions as well. Their Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram individuals reach out to them and indicate the city and state you're from, and they'll get back to you shortly. That's a community page. Volunteers working for you, viewers helping one another. Stay with LA for more. Join LALATE Daily for the excitement of the new LALATE live daily. The excitement starts on mornings LALATE at 9 a.m. Home LALATE returns at 11 a.m. daily. And then afternoons LALATE at 1 p.m. Join us daily as the excitement continues live from Santa Monica on LALATE. And the excitement continues right now on a big Evenings LA for April 28th, 2022. As we go into the big second half tonight, it's important to understand that both the federal government, the president's electorate, basically his senators and his House members, all want to get reelected. Also want to get reelected are your state legislators, whether they are your governor or also your state senators. So what are they all doing? They're all getting money out the door. And that money needs to land now. Needs to start to go out right now. I'll tell you why. When you look at the calendar, we are really clicking on a major deadline. The deadline is voting. Most voting is done by mail now, people understand, and the determinations are generally made by mail. The voting by mail is not done on election night. It's done 2 months to 3 months ahead of time. If the voting is 2 to 3 months ahead of time, that brings us into late summer. That means that if you want to determine or modify or impact the voter, you get them money in their hands before they vote by mail. That is before the end of the summer, they get that check. Then, if you want to get them the check before the end of the summer, that means just send it out before the end of the summer. And if you send it out before the end of the summer, it means you get finalized before midsummer and start working on it right now. That's how it lines up so clearly. This is what the states started with last week, as the first two states announced that they're doing state-forced stimulus. State-forced stimulus was started by Pennsylvania, and its governor saying, I got extra money, I'm going to send it out, $2,000. It followed with Maine saying, I got extra money, I'm going to send it out. Let's go over the comments that were said at the time and what it means for you, because now it's a lot more states. The comments came from Governor Tom Wolf at the time. He is the governor of Pennsylvania. He says Pennsylvania should not have to choose between paying for higher products of goods like utilities and groceries or childcare and gas. We as a state have the opportunity and the means to ensure they're not struggling, meaning we have extra funds in our state bank accounts. Let's send it to those citizens of our state. I'm asking for my state legislature to unite across the political aisle and send out the checks for the sake of every Pennsylvanian across the board. For those who have succeeded in our Commonwealth succeeds. Let's get this money out of the state bank accounts and into the hands of all Pennsylvanians. $2,000 proposed. That was Thursday ago. Then, later that day, Maine announced an $800 stimulus check, approximately. I said at the time we're going to see a lot more states come forward, and it would take a few weeks. I was wrong because it only took 48 hours. Within 48 hours, we grew to over 20 states. That number's likely even higher tonight. What happened? Why is this number growing, and how quickly could it be nearly all states? By my account, I believe that you're going to see nearly all states giving some type of stimulus. Let's go over the details tonight as it unravels. 20 states have now either approved by law or proposing to do by law a state stimulus. And the state stimulus is very different based upon the state that you're issued in. First, how do you find out about this? And what is this? Folks, this is, drumroll, your Check D. Check D has now landed, and that is your state stimulus check. Some states are averaging about $2,000. How do you learn which state is paying a forced stimulus check? How do you learn how they're paying it or when they're paying it or what other type of stimulus they're doing? You become a member. Go to the top of the chat and pin comment. Become a Purple Hawk, Purple Power, or Calcino VIP member. Then get that newsletter Monday through Friday. The newsletter has in there which states, how much, where, and how. Let's go over the details broadly right now, and also I have a little commentary. What's important for you to know is that of those 20 states at the moment tonight, half have passed the law. The other are proposing the law. But in the case of states, it's different than the federal government. If the state proposes the law, it likely happens. Why? Because the state is generally run by the governor, and the governor is usually the controlling party. So you should usually believe that whatever is proposed will happen. That's the first thing. Second, it's important to understand that they have a routing time to get that money out to you, and that routing time is much as what I went over just a second. Now, let me tell you why this is so interesting. It's so interesting because of something we heard in 2020 on this channel. It's called use or lose. At the time, there was negotiations going on between Steve Mnuchin, then Treasury Secretary under Donald Trump, and Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House. She said there's no money available for the states. They're about to go bankrupt. They need a lot of money for second stimulus. He said, no, they don't. They have a lot of money left over. She said, no, they don't. He said, yeah, they do. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do a provision, use or lose. If the states have the money, they got to return it back to me. Lose it. Otherwise, use it. Guess what happened? Lots of states suddenly had money and suddenly started sending you checks. That's in December 2020. Right now, the same situation, just different stimulus package, different year. Jan Yellen put this provision back in there. In the third stimulus package, use or lose. What's at issue? The lose date is December 31st. They got to use the money or return it back to her at Treasury. So for them to use it, what do they have to do? They have to have you get the checks by about October, November. That means they got to get it ready right now because it takes a certain amount of time to get the checks out the door, to vote on the legislation, to propose the legislation. These are your states, remember? And that is why they got to start ramping up right now. That is why we went from 2 states to 20 in just a few days. Now, let's recap a couple of things you need to know, which is very important across the board. What's very important across the board is that every state was given money by the federal government under the third stimulus package. Every state was given money, and the amount of money they were given was the same per resident. Let's recap. Every state was given the same amount of money under third stimulus based upon the number of residents in the state. Doesn't matter if it's rich or poor, Republican or Democrat. Every state was given the same amount of money based upon the number of citizens that live in that state. So, do states have leftover money? Yes. Do some states have a little bit more leftover than others? Of course, absolutely. Are all states going to use the money? 100% guaranteed. No state is returning money back to the federal government. It's free money. Why would they lose it? They're going to use it. And so what are states doing tonight? Tonight, states are doing the following. They're either doing a pure stimulus check, or they're doing, you do something, then you get a check, like you file a tax return and we'll give you a refund off that tax return. Or they're doing another type of stimulus package. Let's say we're not charging you for taxes on this item for 2 months. Or in other cases, they're doing multiple items. And finally, in some cases, they say they're doing something, but they haven't decided how to do it. What you need to know is all in the membership newsletter. It is all in the membership newsletter. Now, 2 things to know. 1, it's important for you to understand that if your state's not doing anything today, it may be doing something tomorrow. That's the first thing. Second, it's important for you to understand that I had a great question on Home LALATE today in that live chat. That's our new Q&A show at noontime. Also has a little bit about Brussels sprouts on there. And one viewer had a brilliant question. Do I have to file tax return to get the state stimulus? Great question. If you're a member of this channel and you open that membership newsletter and you go in there and it says in your state, the only thing they have at the moment is when you file tax return, you get a refund back of $500, $600. Then you have to file tax returns. Now, that viewer also had a great question, which I haven't covered on this channel for over a year. So let me address that question right now. The viewer said, I'm on SSI and SSDI, and in the membership newsletter, it looked like my state's doing something for people who file tax return. I don't have to file tax return. So should I? Let's go over this. This is very important. If you're on SSI and SSDI, and because of your standing, you're not required, that's a keyword, required to file tax return. If you see in the membership newsletter that your state is doing something for people who do file tax return, then go file the tax return. Then go file the tax return. Remember, not being required to file tax return does not prevent you from filing a tax return. Filing a tax return you can do voluntarily. You can still do it. We saw this in third stimulus. For people who had not gotten a stimulus check, IRS said, file tax return. You have to get a missing tax return, to get a missing stimulus check, they said in third stimulus. So that's a great question. I appreciate that, viewer. If you haven't joined Home LALATE, it's every day at 11 a.m. Now, let's go back into those states. So the states are growing by the minute and by the day. But I don't want you to turn the states into a donut moment. I don't want you to turn the states into a donut moment. What day is a check landing in my bank account from the state? I don't want you to think of that way, because there's other money available for you, and that other money available for you is check A, B, and C. And these are the big checks that Joe Biden has made law. Boy, they are big and exciting, and I want you to get these big, incredible checks at issue. You deserve all these incredible checks, and let's go over each of them starting right now. The President of the United States has the ability to give you stimulus checks as much as Congress, and he's done that. He has taken checks out of the Build Back Better Act, and he has now made them a law. Let's go over the incredible details of those big checks tonight, and they're huge. The President of the United States, potentially by seeing what's going on with Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, understood, you know what, I need to get checks out. So he started taking checks out of the Build Back Better Act and making them law by executive action. What I want to make very clear to you tonight, folks, is that these checks became law over a month ago. So you as a Purple Hawk do not want to wait. You want to get these big checks tonight. You do not want to wait because time is of the essence for you. These incredible checks are first come, first serve. And every day that passes that you don't get a check, then guess what happens? The checks may run out. Do not wait to get these incredible checks. Let's go over the details right now. When we talked about a first stimulus check, a second stimulus check, a third stimulus check, $1,200, $600, get ready for these checks. $6,000 is the first check. Oh my goodness, that sounds so wonderful to say. $6,000 to $12,000 is the first four stimulus check that is done by Joe Biden. How do you get it? What do you need to know? Let's go over the details starting right now. A $6,500 to $12,000 stimulus check, four stimulus check, is law. And the president made a law several weeks ago. You don't want to wait. And where is it? First, it's a four stimulus check. Second, the income qualification is so easy. It's just like third stimulus. Single individual, $75,000 less, you can get it. Married couple, $150,000 less, you can get it. And if you're on benefits, SSI, SSDI, Social Security, or railroad benefits, you can get it as well. Where do you get it? You become a member. Go into that membership newsletter tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Go down in the list. Right at the top of the membership newsletter, you'll see Check A. Click the link. It goes into the federal website to apply, and then you get funded. Great news. Let's go to Check B. That is also huge. In Build Back Better Act, not anymore. He took it out, Joe Biden, made it law, $15,000 to $80,000. Payout is landing about direct deposit, about $66,000 to $80,000. It's a four stimulus check. Same income qualification. Single individual, $75,000 less. Married couple, $100,000 or $50,000 or less. It's a four stimulus check. How do you get this check? You go into that membership newsletter, go right under Check A, then go down to Check B. They're in chronological order, numerical order, and get it. It'll send you into the national website. That national website will have a map. And once you see that map, then choose your respective state, and then go right in there, and it pounds. In the case of Check A, you're going to follow the link and then go into the national website and then choose your state like Mississippi. Then choose the Mississippi Homeowners Weatherizing Grant Check. In the case of Check B, it's even easier. You just look at the map, then click your state, then apply, and then get funded. Wow, incredible, great news. Then we have a third check, and that third check is Check C. Check C is huge. It is $24,000 to $45,000. It is an MSE. It is an MSE that the Congress made a law in 2021. How do you get this incredible check? What's at issue? Let's go over all the details across the board. This started in late 2020, December 2020, when millions of Americans were struggling. You needed money. I helped get you money, $250,000 for viewers of this channel, from rent, utilities, and mortgage assistance. There was not a lot of it at the time. And then at the time, I got lucky because I had a piece of paper, an exclusive of a proposed bill for early 2021. I coined the expression, I called it third stimulus. I said, if it becomes law, you're going to get a lot of money because it's the same items that you're just getting right now in December 2020. Guess what happened? It became law. And the viewers of this channel pounced, and they got sums of money, more than a stimulus check. I said to them, I think you can get $15,000. They did not. They got on average $45,000. $45,000. Did you hear me right? These are members. This should be you. This is what happened. Look at these red numbers, 27,000. Look at these utilities numbers. Yeah, it was even higher. Mark's brother-in-law, 15,000. Look at these numbers for SNAP. Look at these numbers for Combo. Wow, it just keeps on growing. Oh my goodness. Mark getting 50,000, then going to 100,000, then going to 166. Here's Lorraine, 105, 120. Now, what happened at the time was I said get 3 to 4 months per round. That is why when you look at these numbers, that's why the numbers look like about 3 to 4 months of these numbers. But what happened in early January of this year was totally different. I had said last year, get around. They did. Then the summer last year, they got around. They did. Then last Christmas, get around. They did. And this time I said, go get around. They didn't. Why not? They said, I'm just tired of this round. Just, you can go round and round with your rounds. I'll just do a whole year. I said, excuse me? A whole year? What? Excuse me? And that's what they did. They did a whole year. Viewer after viewer started doing a whole year of these monies starting in spring of this year. That read their MSG check, $2,000 on average for 12 months. Some years getting over 12 months. And how do you get this? You reach out to your city hall, your city housing authority, your county hall, your county housing authority, your state hall, and your state housing authority. Keywords you say are rent assistance because of COVID, mortgage or utility assistance because of COVID. 3 things you must do. You must put multiple applications on file everywhere. Then rely on those nonprofits in the membership newsletter. Because if you're a member, this is all detailed in the membership newsletter. Check C. And you're not going to reach out to just 6 places because you're a member. You're going to reach out to 15 because the nonprofits are in the membership newsletter. And the nonprofits pay for more sums of money across the board. And that is incredible news about that Check C. Tonight, you have so much money available for you. It can't be any better. This is my focus. This should be your focus. Getting you every check that's available. Those checks are Check D from their state. Check C, the MSCs we just went over. Check B from the federal government. Joe Biden, the president. And Check A from the president. How to get these big checks? Becoming a member. Purple Hawk, Purple Power, or Casino VIP. Get these incredible checks across the board. Become a member and get that incredible newsletter tonight. What's important to understand is that we go into tonight's recording with a little bit of uncertainty about Germany. A lot of uncertainty, maybe some would say, because Germany was told by Deutsche Bank just days ago, you better do stimulus or you're going to recession with the United States. What's at issue? Germany was initially approached to get off of Russian oil the first week of the invasion of Ukraine. Germany said no. France said get off of it. So did the United States. Germany said yes. Then about a week ago, Germany said no again. Tonight, Germany's saying something different. As you know, Emmanuel Macron re-elected in France last Sunday. Great news for six stimulus. Again, six stimulus is that major stimulus package, the largest you ever seen in a generation. But then Germany now, tonight, saying, you know what, maybe we'll slowly get off of those Russian products because we can't make a hard overnight break. That's a good signal across the board. Of course, they didn't give really clear guidance about how quickly. But what I got to tell you is that Germany has been told by Deutsche Bank, you got to do six stimulus. I'm not telling you tonight, you got to do six stimulus in the United States as well. I've been saying that since day one of the invasion of Ukraine. And guess what's happening? We're less than a week away from what I told to you was the realization we're heading into recession. I told you back in March, if we have $4 a gallon for the domestic unleaded in the United States average from AAA in the month of May, all the way from the month of March, we're going into recession. I said we cannot sustain $4 a gallon at the pump going into May. If we are, we're going into recession for 2 years. Tonight, we're at $4 a gallon. We're actually a little bit higher. Second, I told you the price of commodities is not sustainable. You have in the membership newsletter the May 2022 contract for corn and wheat, and it shows the prices continue to surge, higher than the March contracts, those are the futures contracts, on those commodities. Commodities could still go up 40% more, and no one in the White House has figured out or even addressed the shortage of the commodities and how it could send the U.S. economy in a recession. No one in the White House has gotten gasoline to be ramped up in production or importing. We had that big opportunity for gasoline to be ramped up because of a deal with Iran. The JCPOA was negotiated by Germany and France on our behalf for several months, and then suddenly out of nowhere, it didn't happen. That was the deal we needed, and we didn't get that deal. It would have been 1.5 million barrels a day. Guess what we have tonight? We have 1 million barrels released per day from the strategic reserves from Joe Biden. We have 500,000 barrels from our Western allies, but we learned that OPEC cut production or misproduction for the month of March by 1.5 million, and we have 3 million barrels missing from Russia. Yeah. So while we are trying to catch up, we're actually further back than we initially thought. We're down a lot of barrels per day, folks. Down 3 million barrels a day from Russia, down over 1 million barrels a day because of less production by OPEC, and we've only supplemented that with 1.5 million. It ain't gonna work. And along the way, we have no solution as well for wheat and grain. And I got to tell you, you can drive your car and have a solution with that. But if you even have the gasoline prices in control and you don't have the wheat and grains, we're going to recession. Tonight, if you look at the data from Amazon, if you look at the data from the major players, even Facebook gave earnings guidance downward today as well for later this year, even though it was a major beat for this first quarter. If you look at the projections, the data continues to signal that get ready. The pandemic and subsequent war in Ukraine have brought unusual growth and challenges. No understatement there, says Amazon CEO Andy Jassy tonight in his latest earnings report. The squarely focused offsetting costs and fulfillment network is a problem. This may take some time, particularly as we work through the ongoing inflationary supply chain disruption. But we see encouraging progress on a number of consumer experience dimensions. What does that mean? Including delivery, speed, and performance. Oh, good. They're getting the products faster to you, but the markets are shrinking. And we're now approaching levels not seen since the months immediately preceding the pandemic in early 2020. That's good. But overall, it's projecting sales of 125 billion, and it sees growth of only 3% by the end of the year. Trouble across the board. Here's what you need to know, is that when there's money available for you, you grab it. This channel's all about learning, and when you learn, you earn. If you don't learn, you don't earn. Jumping in the live chat and saying there's no money in my state, wrong. There's money in your state. Do you want it? Go get it. Jump in the live chat and saying there's no help in my state, wrong. There is help in your state. Jump in the live chat and saying forced stimulus is not a law. It is a law. Joe Biden took 2 stimulus checks out of there and made it a law. And it's a lot more money than anything that Congress has ever given you before. Why would you pass it up? In the uncertain times that even Amazon tonight cannot anticipate what's going on in this market, you want to pounce and get every check that's available. You don't want to wait. If there was ever a warning signal tonight about what's coming in with corporate earnings, about the confusion about the GDP and the inflation and the growth and the recessionary pressures, you need to get every check that's available. And you can't wait. And remember, whenever a new check becomes available, I immediately deliver it to you as well. That's my focus, and it should be your focus as well. So go right in this chat and become a Purple Hawk member tonight. Purple Hawk, Purple Power, Calcino VIP. Get that incredible newsletter Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Make sure you go to the top of this chat and subscribe also. Make sure you subscribe and hit that little bell on the front of this channel so you have all your notifications set to all, so you don't miss any information, any newsletter, or any money that's being announced. From the shores of Santa Monica, California, to the shores of your country or your continent or your town, we're all family together, and we'll all get through this together. Whether we're up or we're down, left or right, inflation or no inflation, recession or no recession, we're here together, and together we'll win as one family, the Purple Power family. Stay informed, stay focused, have a beautiful night, and stay here as Evenings LA continues.